My kids have taken to calling me the widower Barnett, for obvious reasons. I'm Dr. Richard Barnett. Again, as Max stated, thanks to the Lions Club for hosting this for us. My granddad was a lifelong. I should have worn my vest that won't fit anymore because they made it for me when I was 14. You don't want to build it. So I should have worn my vest tonight that's covered with pins from the 1972 International Convention in Mexico City that we went to with my granddad. And had a full set of U.S. state pins from 1972. It's probably not worth it to pay.
Well, we could afford you with some new pins.
Could you give me some new pins and a vest? Okay. Anyway, Dr. Richard Barnett, I've served 2 terms on the City Council, and I was thinking this afternoon what's happened since I've been on the City Council, and if I start naming things, I'm undoubtedly going to name something that happened 2 years before I got on the council, and somebody's going to say, well, no, you didn't do that. But so I started thinking back. We moved to Richfield in the fall of 1996, almost 20 years ago. And I look at the growth that's occurred in Richfield in that time, and the things that are here that weren't here when we moved here just 20 years ago. A Home Depot, a Walmart, a Wendy's, a new KFC out on the freeway, 3 new hotels out on the south interchange of the freeway, Wingers, a Fresh Market that used to be Albertsons. It's a brand new building. IFA has moved from their little store over to the big store where the grocery store used to be. 2 or 3 new hotels on the north end of town. A couple of subways. And on and on and on. 49 units of housing that are going in where the water slide used to be right now. 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 new subdivisions in that 20 years. Richfield is strong, and we're growing. And we as a City Council are tasked with the job of trying to regulate that growth, trying to see that it happens in an orderly fashion, and we have a delicate balancing act that we have to perform. One is to watch out and take care of the needs of our citizenry in terms of what we offer them. And the other side of that balancing act is to try and help promote growth in the community so that we don't stagnate. And so sometimes it's a very difficult and delicate balancing act to try and take care of. I've heard that since my wife passed away in March. I've heard that I'm selling my business and moving. Any of you that have heard that, I heard that too, and I thought, wow, that's really interesting. I'm running for City Council for a 3rd term because I'm selling my practice and moving out of the area. Apparently, I don't know. Have no plans to go anywhere. Richfield is my home, and I own a business here, and own a home here, own some rental properties here, and I have enjoyed my time on the council. Have enjoyed finding out what makes Richfield tick. Have enjoyed the opportunity to serve the citizenry of Richfield in the way that I think is best for Richfield, and really having been elected by you all, the best that I can offer you is the judgment that you think that I have that makes me able to make those decisions. Thank you.
Shouldn't we have clapped after everybody?
We did.
It's okay. It's okay.
We'll clap after you.
You don't have to clap after me. It's okay. So, I've lived here my whole life. I love Richfield. I've lived here my whole life. Oh yeah, okay. Okay, and my son, when he was born in 1961, he had 14 grandparents, and 12 of them lived in Richfield. So my grandkids now have, or the 7th generation of people living in Richfield. Both of my mother's parents, both of my dad's parents, both of my husband's mother's parents, and both of his dad's parents all settled Richfield. So we have 7 generations going back 8 different ways. So, when it came to going on vacations or anything else, we didn't ever have anybody to go visit because everybody lived here. So, last month, I was proud of my grandson. He graduated from basic training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and we drove out to Fort Sill to be to his graduation. And on the way, we went through all these little towns that with boarded up, buildings and lots of weeds and everything else. And got back to Ridgefield, and I thought, you know, we have a wonderful place here. Our Main Street is so strong, and there's not any buildings that are vacant, or if there is, there's only one or two, and you get back here and you start appreciating more of what you've got. Because, you know, sometimes you just take it for granted, and I thought after going on that trip, I thought, wow, I really appreciate our town and our strong Main Street and our strong community. Last year I went to my son's house in Michigan, and I was just shocked. On some of their main roads, they were really broke up, you know, the pavement was and everything else, and some of that stuff you just take for granted, and you get back here and you think, wow, you know, Ridgefield City really works hard at trying to keep all of our roads up and everything else, because if you let them go to pot, it is so expensive to redo them, and I thought, wow, I really hadn't appreciated that, you know, till I saw how bad some of their roads were and everything else. And, you know, on the city council and everything else, we work really hard to get our infrastructure up too, so y'all have water and you know, sewer and everything else, and we've purchased a lot of underground water, you know, so we all will have water to water our lawns and everything else, and when people are starting to have problems, we've been really good to keep buying water every time we get a chance, so we don't have that problem. You know, you just look around at our community, and I just love that new high school. And I thought, isn't it neat that our school district built that new high school where the old one was, instead of moving to a different location and leaving a vacant building. You know, when you go around a lot of these communities, there's a lot of places where they just abandon a building and then move somewhere else, and then in your community you have these abandoned buildings that nobody's going to use anymore. So I just think it's wonderful that we have that new high school up there. Rush Limbaugh, a couple of years ago on the radio, said that America's in trouble because we're not keeping up our schools, that our buildings are deteriorating and that, and we're not keeping up. And we're lucky that we have the school board we do in our community that's keeping things up. Our hospital, when they added on our hospital, they were debating on whether just to abandon that and build, you know, out somewhere else, you know, and they decided to remodel it and, you know, add on to it. And thank goodness they did that. Do you know what a beautiful thing that is, and how sad that would have been if they would have moved out somewhere and we would have had that vacant building. And you know, we think of things that are going on, and sometimes we can get so we can complain and everything else. But when you think about all the things that happen in our community and all the wonderful things that are going on, I wanted to tell you about an experience I had years ago. My husband was in a car wreck down at Panguitch, and they called me from the Panguitch Hospital, and they said, you need to come down here and get your husband. He's been in a wreck, and there's no doctors here at the Panguitch Hospital. Well, years ago, we didn't have EMTs, and we didn't have ambulances, and we didn't have all this wonderful stuff we have nowadays. What happened is you'd call McElbee's, and they'd go down in the hearse if you needed an ambulance. So I called McElbee's and said, can you go down and get Jeff at Panguitch because he's been in this wreck? And they said, well, we're sorry, we're picking up a dead body over in Hanksville, so there's no way we can. So my brother headed down and bring my husband home, who was hurt quite bad, you know. And they got up to the hospital and went into the, you know, my brother went into the hospital to see if they could help my husband. And they said, you know, Dr. Worley, he's the only doctor we had in town. I don't know if you guys remember when we only had Dr. Worley here. And they said, Dr. Worley's the only one we've got in town right now, and he's been up 3 nights delivering babies, and could you just please go home and come back tomorrow? And don't take any aspirin in case you have a concussion, you know. And I thought, you know, we are so lucky, you know, when you figure that nice hospital up there and all these doctors we've got and all these services they perform, sometimes we forget it wasn't that many years ago that we didn't have all these wonderful things. So, I mean, I just think Ridgefield's really growing. I think we're lucky with a lot of this wonderful stuff we have. I've been on the city council this last time for 4 years, and I've loved being on the city council. I've loved serving with the people that are on there. I love our mayor. I think we have a really good mayor, and we have really good city council members. Our police department is just wonderful. You know, our community, all the things that are happening in America, and you feel so safe in our community. You feel like you could go for a walk or do anything. And right now we have 2 police officers in the schools that they're there full time, and when you hear of all these shootings in the schools and everything else, it's such a good feeling to feel that your kids are safe and that we don't need to worry in our community like a lot of other communities have to worry. I think we have a really good city staff that tries really hard to do everything the best way they can. Our library, I think it's just wonderful. We have a new librarian, and she's been getting grants and doing all these different programs in our library, and I think our library is just wonderful. We have all these wonderful parks, our swimming pool, and our recreation programs. You know, when my kids were growing up, we didn't have all these programs that we've got now, so I think it's just wonderful the way the city's done all these programs for all, you know, for all these things for our kids to be involved in. And our tennis courts, don't you just think they're the most beautiful thing? Up there, you go up there drive through there in the evenings, and there's kids out there playing tennis, and they're just absolutely beautiful, and it's so fun to have them right there instead of back behind the high school. And you know, we've spent a lot of money on our airport, and it's so nice to have that airport. I think that Richfield has the best people in the whole wide world. I think everybody here is just so loving and so kind and so willing to help their neighbors and everything else. And we have such good volunteers. You know, our fire department, I don't know if you guys realize on our fire department, but my dad joined the fire department in the 50s. And, you know, you had to be voted in, and he'd go to fire meeting. And back then, all you had to do was go to fire meeting on Monday nights for 1 hour. That's all they did. They didn't do any training. They didn't do anything. They went to fire meeting. And then, you know, and then if there's a fire, you went out and fought a fire. Well, our volunteer firemen nowadays, I don't know if you realize what they go through. It is just, I should have asked Matt and Max and exactly what they do. Max, anyway, is a fireman, and we need to appreciate Max. He's one of our volunteer firemen. But our firemen, you get elected in to be a fireman, and you spend, is it like 6 months, like every Saturday or something, for 6 months going to training or whatever? I mean, it's a lot of training that you have to do. You don't just get to be a fireman anymore and just go to Monday night meetings, but they have all this training they do. And then they also help the county with all these wildland fires and everything else. I mean, so it's a big volunteer job, and we're lucky that we've got 25 men that are willing to volunteer and do that. Civic groups in Richfield are so important. You know, the Lions Club is a wonderful organization, and they do a lot of wonderful things in our community. And I don't know if you're aware, but you know, all the lights that are put on the street, on Main Street for Christmas, the Lions Club and the Indian Dorm kids do that. We put those up, whether it's freezing cold or whatever, every November, and take them down in February. Anyway, that's a good thing that the Lions Club does. Anyway, my parents taught me at an early age and by example how important it is to serve others and to be a part of your community and serving your community. And I've loved being on the city council all these years. And I'd love to be on it again, so that's all I got to say.